let's start with, how would you define holding your space?
Yeah, you're right. It is a topic or a term that's thrown around a lot, and it probably means different things to different people. But when I'm speaking about it, I'll talk a little bit about what it can look like, okay, so that people understand what that means, and then I'll talk about what's happening on spirit level,
okay,
so
great.
that I can define it that way. Okay, so what that could look like is that you are affected by someone else's emotion or overwhelm or stress or their sense of urgency. Okay, so meaning that you're with, like, you're feeling fine, and then you're with someone and that starts to affect you. Okay, or you wake up, you're feeling great, but then you're looking at something on social media and something that somebody posts or something that someone emails you affects you and you don't feel good. It could mean that someone is trying to get you to do something, and often does. Okay, so they're trying to push their agenda or whatever they want you to do on you, and you often like feel like you have to do it, because if you don't, then you'll be mean or not thoughtful or inconsiderate or selfish. So you do. Or it could also mean that you try to control others or circumstances or situations, right? That also means that you're not holding space. Okay, so all those are just like little examples of what that looks like on the physical, just so people get an idea of what that means. But what's happening in all those situations on spirit level is similar. What's happening is, so if you can imagine that sphere of that spirit body all around you at arm's length, right, that we've talked about often. Within that sphere, all the way through to your physical body, there really should be nothing other than you, your higher self, pure source. That's it. Nothing else in this sphere. But in all those situations I just talked about, the frequencies of something external are pushing into your space. Okay, so they're influencing you, and it can either push you off center or feel not good. In one of the examples I said, you control other. That's when you come out of your space and push yourself into someone else. Okay, so either way, whether it's something influencing you in a way that you don't like, or you're trying to control something or someone else, that's what I mean by not holding space. I mean, you're pushing into their space now. Yeah. Okay, so that's what I mean by holding space, and it can really derail us, because not only do we feel bad emotionally, but it really bogs us down, because for a lot of us, and we did a whole episode on being nice and having people be in our space, but it's sort of like you start to take on their frequency resonance, which then starts to bog you down. Because often if you have the pattern where you allow people to come into your space like that, it's likely that it's not just one person who does it. It's likely more and more people, and that causes your frequency resonance to really drop. It also is an indication that your spirit body is porous. So it's not tight, okay, holding that space for just self, meaning a really strong spirit body on spirit level, when I perceive it, is totally smooth. Okay, it's almost like, it's like the smoothest glass you could ever perceive, but not even porous. It's just like hyper smooth, and it's thick, and it's very, 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 very bright. So it's almost like you would ping off of it, right? Like you took a running start and went like running at it, you would just like bounce right off of it. Nice. Similar, right? Because it's so bright that it appears solid. For a lot of people, when they're not holding their space, their spirit body is porous. So things come right on in. It's like a cheesecloth, you know, or a linen that's really like a loose weave, and you can see right through it. It's kind of like that. So that is not great. So that's what I mean by holding your space.
Okay, I'm having a little confusion with certain terms.
Sure.
So, like, we might have mentioned this before, but empath.
Yeah.
And holding your space, and there was something else. But can you just at least clarify between empath and holding your space and how that's different?
So empaths actually have trouble often holding their space, which is why you're kind of getting confused. Yeah. So empath to me means somebody who feels others really clearly, sometimes even more than they feel themselves. Yes. Okay. So people who are empathic actually often have trouble holding their space, meaning they start to feel others' feelings more, and those frequencies that the other people are feeling, or their emotions or their thoughts or their whatever they're experiencing, or their negative distortions, start to come into the space of the empath.
Would that be why they are an empath? Because they're not holding their space?
It can be.
It can be, okay.
But it's often a combination, meaning they're sensitive already.
Okay. And they're
also not holding their space.
This porous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to clarify and say you can be empathic. So meaning you can be an empath and hold your space, but recognize that that person is out there. So meaning you can feel what they are feeling, but it doesn't internally affect you.
Beautiful.
It doesn't make you feel worse, heavier, tired,
yeah,
whatever.
Because with some people, you hang out with them and you're exhausted when you leave and they're energized. So
exactly.
That's one way. Okay.
Yes, exactly. And what you're describing actually can also be what I call latching. Okay, and latching happens when you don't hold your space. So latching is like when, say, there you are, okay, and someone else comes in with like an energetic hook and latches into the inside of your spirit body to draw from you things like your life force, your resonance, whatever it is. So you're just going like zzz, right? Like a tank, fuel tank being drained.
Yep.
And they're feeling amped up because they're pulling from you what you have to make themselves feel better. Okay? So latching happens when we don't hold our space. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like you can't latch onto somebody who's holding their space and has a strong spirit body because there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to get in, right?
Nice.
But if someone is not holding their space, it's easier to latch.
Okay.
So what you're describing is a sign of possible latching and also not holding your space or not holding your space.
Yeah.